Does Jey Uso deserve a WrestleMania main event? It's the question that is dividing America, and it's the question I'm going to try to answer in this video. There's a lot of critics of Jey Uso, and then on the other side, there's a lot of diehard Jey Uso fans. Now, I went to the Royal Rumble and I saw Jey Uso win live. And I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't really that happy about it the night of. And I assumed others also wouldn't be that ecstatic because Jey Uso gets so much hate on the internet. That was until I interviewed the people on the streets of Indianapolis after the Royal Rumble. And honestly, it was overwhelmingly pro Jey Uso. So I thought to myself, am I the problem? Am I wrong? 65,000 people yeeting all at once in that arena when Jey Uso won, and I still doubted. So what I want to do in this video, honestly, is to try to prove myself wrong. So to answer the question of, does Jey Uso deserve it, and can Bosco become a Jey Uso fan, we're going to take a look at three things. First, Jey Uso's story as a whole so far. Two, we're going to address some of the biggest criticisms of Jey Uso and see if they're actually valid. And three, Jey's future. Where does he go from here? Where does he go after WrestleMania? Is this sustainable? All of that matters to me to determine, can I actually get behind Jey Uso, or are my criticisms valid? So I've done various research. I've created some graphics. I've assembled all the data. And by the end of this video, I hope to make my final decision. And if any of you are on the fence about Jey Uso like I am, or if you're a true Jey Uso hater, we'll see where you get by the end of this video. Let's start on the positive side, maybe. I think one thing that we have to acknowledge, no matter what side of the fence you're on, is truly how fresh and new Jey Uso is as a solo star. For 10 years, he really got no solo opportunities until he faced Roman twice during the COVID years. And those matches were not in front of a live audience. So, I don't know, those years were just weird. It's hard to put any context to them. That momentum then continued a little bit. He won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which was really like his first bullet point on his solo resume. But then, as soon as he was getting that momentum, he went right back into the tag team world, teamed again with Jimmy as a member of the Bloodline for the next 2 years, which took him all the way through the end of 2023. So to me, it makes you realize, like, when you put this Yeet movement in the context of Jey Uso's entire career, you realize even though he's a 15-year vet, Jey Uso is still a very fresh and very new character that I think is still trying to find his identity a little bit. And I think that's part of the charm of the movement. A veteran superstar, a very familiar face, feeling like a fresh underdog. It's like that, like, Kofi Mania kind of a feeling. But I wanted to try to quantify this. Like, how can we really put Jey Uso's solo career in the perspective of his entire career? So I pulled this graphic together to help us understand, what does Jey Uso's solo resume even look like? And it's pretty eye-opening. In 15 years with the WWE, he has had only 87 solo matches. And a lot of those early ones were like 3-minute squash matches. So I don't even know if we can count those. And it's really, really ramped up in the last year or two. So when I think about my criticism and other criticisms of Jey Uso as a solo wrestler, I think you have to weigh those against the context of the length and resume of his solo career thus far, which is really pretty short. And personally for me, when I thought about it this way, there's a completely flip side to that, where yes, you can criticize Jey Uso because he doesn't have a big solo resume to justify a WrestleMania main event, but you also got to give the man his flowers, that in such a short amount of time as a solo superstar, he has gained a diehard loyal fan base that can rival anybody else in the WWE, and he's truly formed a connection with the fans. You have to respect that there's something more to that than just saying the word Yeet over and over again, right? As a babyface, isn't that really the number one thing that matters when you're wrestling week in and week out? But the question still remains, is that enough to justify winning the title at a WrestleMania main event and truly taking the next step? And that brings me to some of the criticisms that I have and that I really want to try to address and see if they're valid. One of the biggest criticisms for Jey Uso is that he's just not built or not ready to be a solo star. He's just a tag team guy. His moveset is limited. He's not very dynamic on the microphone, and his entrance and Yeet are his entire equity as a star. From a technical perspective, those are all very fair points. Honestly, it is the three main things I struggle with the most in getting behind Jey Uso. But I haven't really seen anyone quantify the criticism. It's all kind of baseless, observational criticism. So what I did is I watched Jey Uso's 5 biggest matches from last year. I jotted down every move he did, every move his opponent did, and I ran a side-by-side analysis to see, is this limited moveset criticism valid within the scope of each individual match and the variability of moves between him and his opponent? And also, is he varying moves week to week and match to match, or is he truly repeating the same things over and over again? So if we start with his match at WrestleMania 40 against Jimmy, he stacks up pretty well against Jimmy Uso's moveset. But at that point in time, honestly, that wasn't saying much. Jimmy and Jey basically had the same moveset, being a tag team for 12 years at that point. So Jey gets the edge on this one, but we'll come back to this list for Jey after we look at the rest of the matches for the year. It's interesting to see his evolution from this match moving forward. Next is the world title match against Damian Priest at Backlash. In my opinion, the catalyst for Jey Uso getting so much of the crowd behind him at basically every other city they went to after France. Lyon was wild for Jey Uso. So you start to see some repeat moves here, and in terms of move variety, Damian Priest had him beat. Then we have the 2 Intercontinental title matches against Braun Breaker on Monday Night Raw. And this one, honestly, is the most telling to me. You get 2 matches against the same person side by side in a short amount of time. You see Braun Breaker has all of his repeated signature moves, but the difference is he has variety between the 2 matches in his secondary moves. He pulled out a gutbuster and a moonsault. I mean, come on. And then you have Jey's moveset, which unfortunately is just kind of like a copy and paste of the Damian Priest and Jimmy Uso match, and really was the same between the 2 Braun Breaker matches. So it very much does validate the criticism. But what's also interesting to me is the 5th match against Gunther at Saturday night's main event. You see all of Jey's typical moves, but then snuck in there are 2 moves that he doesn't really pull out often or ever: a sit-out powerbomb and a Hurricane Rana, which between those 2 moves alone are 2 very different kinds of moves to pull out in a match, especially for Jey. In my opinion, this match with Gunther was Jey's best solo match over the last year, and it was the one where he pulled out 2 new moves. So maybe there's a correlation there that hopefully he can continue to build on. And I hope to see more of that, to be honest. And when you stack these 5 matches up against one another, they all look like the same kind of Jey Uso match. I've highlighted the moves that you see in green, which were the only unique moves, meaning he didn't pull them out in any of the other 5 matches. So I think this kind of speaks for itself. I don't need to defend it too much. I think if Jey eventually becomes champ, he has to be able to be the one holding the match up on his own and controlling the flow of the match. In all of these matches, Jey was the one getting beat down the whole time. It felt like he spent the most time on the ground in every single match, and then eventually he'd pull out a comeback moment and do his usual move set and get the crowd back up and get a 2 count after that. I think if he is to have a lengthy and successful title reign, he's got to get comfortable with being the guy controlling the match. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, though. Like, the Gunther match was promising. So keep an eye on any of the new matches that Jey gets, especially the solo ones, before WrestleMania. And keep an eye out if he's doing any new moves. And if he is, give him credit, because I think that's something he has to start layering in, especially if he's going to win the title. He's got to do that pretty quickly. So that's point 1. The ring criticism is valid. And I'll be honest, watching 5 Jey Uso matches in a row, it did get very predictable. There was certain spots where by match 3, I knew exactly what he was going to do in that spot every single time. The other criticism is about Jey's promo ability. But I'm actually not as worried about Jey's mic ability as everyone else seems to be. He cut great promos with Jimmy during their Bloodline tag team title reign. He was so good during the whole will he, won't he angle with the turn against the Bloodline. He was tugging on my emotional heartstrings. So to me, the criticism shouldn't really be on Jey Uso's mic abilities at their core, because he's shown he can do it. Instead, I think it should be on maybe just his recent execution and how much he's relying on Yeet and the crowd engagement. Maybe even a little bit on creative direction for not giving him linear storylines where he can cut distinguishable promos. It feels like he's kind of been in flux, kind of bobbing and weaving between various people and storylines over the last few months. And now it feels like finally he's got something that he can work on for a few months. And I think he can do it. I think he's got to reframe his approach on the mic a little bit and lean more into naturally being Jey Uso versus just yeeting all the time, which honestly, I personally get annoyed with it. We'll see if that changes. I did like his promos on the Raw and SmackDown after the Rumble already. So when it comes to the criticism, I do agree a lot of it is valid, especially the in-ring stuff. But the more I thought about it, it feels a little bit preemptive. And what I mean by that is I think we have to let all of this play out through WrestleMania, see how the storyline progresses, see if Jey can deliver week to week with a lengthy storyline that he can continue to build on over the span of a couple of months, and see if he can step up to the plate and deliver. And if he wins the title, then I think all criticism is on the table. At that point, he is being labeled by WWE as one of the faces of the company. At that point, criticism is justified. So to answer the question, will I get behind the Yeet movement? I think if you look at what WWE has given Jey Uso over the last 1 to 2 years in his solo push, being the first guy to pin Roman in 3.5 years, the emotional heartstrings he pulled on everybody when he left the Bloodline, the solo title shots he's had with various superstars, and as he continues to layer the solo achievements on, he's not losing the momentum. Fans are getting more and more behind Jey Uso, and there is something to that beyond just technical in-ring ability and the ability to speak on a mic. It's like authentic connection, which is so hard to do in pro wrestling. There's so many great technical wrestlers that don't amount to anything. At the end of the day, forming a connection with fans, getting people behind you, isn't that like exactly everything that being a babyface in pro wrestling is all about? And once I realized that, honestly, it made things pretty simple for me. It's Jey Uso's story, the underdog babyface with the entire crowd behind him. Go back and watch the Usos before 2013, and you'll understand why Jey says he feels like he could have been fired at any point early in his career. How can you not get behind this push, even if it's for just a couple of months to WrestleMania? You don't have to commit to being a Jey Uso fan for the rest of his career. Pro wrestling, to me, especially in the WWE, is all about creating a moment. All of this buildup for Jey feels like a 15-year payoff that ends with him winning the title and 80,000 people yeeting at night 1 of WrestleMania. What a moment that would be. And from that point forward, if he has the title in hand, then I think Jey will have everything to prove to the fans and to me. The babyface chase is over. Now, can his performance in the ring or on the mic be the one to elevate his feuds and his matches versus relying on his opponents to control the match and the feuds like we have seen for the last year? That's when we should get much more critical. But for now, I think it's okay to ride the wave and enjoy the special moment that we might get at WrestleMania if Jey wins. Even if he's not putting on historically great technical matches between now and then. Enjoy the moment, yeet away, and I'll be right there with you.